Hey everyone, I want to talk all about how I didn't want to be here anymore and how I thought about taking my own life for an extended period of time, how that played directly into what we call the LFT, a term coined by Albert Ellis, low frustration tolerance. One of the biggest things that plagues human psychology all over the world, the beliefs about things needing to be a certain way, you must have what you want, universal fairness and deservingness, and everything else in between, your life not working out a certain way, like I said, the shame and guilt that comes from that. As I always say, shame and guilt at the chronic level is almost always covered incorrectly. There is no chronic shame and guilt. Keyword chronic. The chronicity of shame and guilt is perpetuated by strong conditional beliefs. If you're working with someone and there's chronic shame and guilt and they're not talking about your beliefs on things in the past, the belief you hold in the now, you more than likely want a second opinion because beliefs drive everything. And I rarely hear people talk about this stuff. It's why there's no guilt when it comes to, people would say, aren't you guilty from putting, your wife through what you went through, etc. There's no guilt and shame surrounding that. Am I sad about it? Sure, a healthy remorse. But there's no shame and guilt because the world believes that you should feel shame and guilt. And as we know, humans are very black and white. They're very strong in their opinions. There's no such thing as these strong personality traits, A types, B types. All we have are beliefs. Humans are empty vessels and they're shells. And there's a lot of things we can't explain, from your socioeconomic structure to your culture to how you were raised, the time period, and then all your experiences and beliefs in shaping you to who you are now. It's an ever-changing complex. There's no such thing as, say, an extrovert or an introvert. There's no such thing as this personality trait and that personality trait. That's not provable by science. And because of that, it fits in the realm of these strong, irrational ideologies that humans hold about how things should and shouldn't be. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this video. I know a lot of people are in dark places. If you find this video and you don't have OCD and anxiety-based disorders, maybe you lost a family member in a shooting or a motor vehicle collision or some cancer or something just really tragic, maybe this video will find you and help you in that regard, because I do like to do videos that branch out sometimes from just strictly obsessive-compulsive disorder. In the months leading up to when OCD became chronic for me, which was in June 2019, everything seemed to be going quite well. My father had died about a year before that. He died in March of 2018. I was finally beginning to process that because of the way I was raised and the belief systems I held. I would just package that and bury that down, and I just didn't talk about it. I was in grad school at the time. Things were coming to a close. I was getting ready to graduate sometime the next year and go out and start, working and making money and moving across the country. I think at this time my wife and I decided we wanted to move to Colorado because we were talking about coming out here. And then when I came out here to visit, I was chronically latched for about a month. So visiting Colorado, and I went to Oregon too, was pretty tough. With all that stuff leading up to that, things were going pretty well. And then I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and my ears were ringing. And I went back to sleep, and I woke up an hour later, and my ears were still ringing, and I had a panic attack, and then OCD became chronic. That was the moment where fear of having tinnitus forever, the fear of never recovering, and the compulsive spiral began. I was on every single American Tinnitus Association, watched all the videos, I read all these books, went to the audiologist. I stopped using headphones. I stopped driving the car with the windows down. I stopped using forks and knives. I stopped being around areas where things were loud. And it was a big, big problem. I had all sorts of people telling me, you have tinnitus, make sure there's no more ear damage. You can't, oh my gosh. It's the same thing with health and fitness. Cigars, you can't smoke cigars. That's bad for you. And then I explained to them that they're going to die one day, and whether you die at the age of 40 to 90 really means no difference in the grand scheme of human existence. Because in this day and age, because of the comfort, we all believe that we're owed life. But no one is owed life, because we know that because people die 5 minutes after they're born. It's the unfortunate sides of life, man. Life is very, very, very unfair. It's much more unfair in many regards than it is fair. The difference is the people that have that belief, such as the really famous people in the psychological community and the gurus on YouTube, is they have a much more serious black and white belief about how life should be, about how things should be, whether it's politics, money, religion, like I always talk about, mental health discussions. Then those individuals hold those beliefs with such black and white Demanding this, it creates chronic shame and guilt and depression, etc. And talking about, Arthur Schopenhauer, who is very, very famous for pessimism, talks about life is purposeless. There's no point. Death is really the only option. And I've listened to quite a few of his videos or summary videos, and I've never read any of his literature. But I do agree with Schopenhauer, for an example. I don't think life has any sort of universal purpose whatsoever. There can't be a universal purpose of being a good person, because if there was, individuals wouldn't act in particular manners. We just have humans with brains and experiences in neurology, and there's probably a lot less free will than we think. The problem is that's really scary for people. Now, I give myself an individual purpose that I assign to myself. I've given myself that particular meaning. You don't need to have a strong meaning in life. You can go be a beach bum and just kind of float around. We call them dirtbagging, right? In Colorado, you live in vans and you hike and stuff like that. No, maybe full direction. But when you have the same, I have those beliefs like Arthur Schopenhauer. I have the same beliefs that, say, maybe Jordan Peterson would hold on existentialism and just no real purpose in life. And in the grand scheme of, and what happens is, when people attach to things, they say, well, there's no universal purpose, so I have to attach to religion. I have to attach to a sport. I have to attach to bodybuilding. I have to attach to a family. I have to be this person in work. And it probably look like I'm having a seizure right there. But that's okay-ish. But if you hold it in that black and white demandingness as people are holding it, that becomes a problem when those things don't work out for you. So, and again, there's a lot of theory in this video and just kind of going off on these tangents, but I think it will all come together to equal why I'm here today. So, became latched in June 2019, was in the mental hospital by November. So, June, July, August, September, October, November. So 5 months. Going to the hospitals for the audiologist, and sensory motor came up in September, and blinking, and with saliva and swallowing, that latched for a couple of years. And I was in the hospital, and I was sitting in that cot in the intake room thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. I really want to kill myself. And now, getting to where I am now, and I really look at why I wanted to kill myself, the reason why I wanted to end my own life was purely off low frustration tolerance. This is going to be really hard for some people to hear, and I'm sorry about that, but it's going to be very important to hear it, because one of the number one things that saves lives is talking about problems, whether it's alcohol or a drug addiction, a pornography addiction, whatever the problem may be, mental health, anxiety disorders, PTSD. Speaking with other people in the community and having humor and being able to joke about your situation as you're taking it seriously and getting better is one of the best things you could do for your overall mental health, in my opinion, as you slowly chip away at those beliefs. So I wanted to kill myself. I thought about all different ways all the time, hanging myself, drowning myself. My frustration tolerance was very low. Rob and I have had conversations about this. I don't believe Rob got to that point, not in a suffering. Rob suffered immensely, one of the worst cases of OCD I've come across. But I don't think he got to a point because of his particular belief systems about wanting to end his life over and over again. That was how it presented with me because of that extreme low frustration tolerance I had. So, and again, I would be in the bathtub thinking I could just slip and drown myself right now. It would be so much better. I always tell people on calls I would drive past construction sites and see the cranes and just imagine myself hanging from them and thinking, man, that would be so much better of an option if I just killed myself. Thankfully, I didn't make that decision. Thankfully, I'm here today to make this video for you, talking about my experiences and my journey and all the and wrong diagnoses, all the unconditional other acceptance I had to apply to people for not getting it, my mother, my family members, and trying their best, and my wife trying their best, but then holding that against them. You don't understand, which was a compulsion. So how did I get better? How did I get myself to where I am today, owning a business, owning a coaching business with Rob, and contracting out with him and doing all the things I do, and the hiking and the exercise and all the other stuff. So along the journey, I made these realizations that helped me a lot. Everyone knows I like doing little diagrams. Everyone's going to respond a little bit different in how this affects them and how they make these epiphany, I guess you'd call them epiphany moments. But let's say that this line is suffering, okay? So that is the line of obsessive compulsive disorder suffering, anxiety suffering. So I'm going to put a parallel line with that, and then I'm going to draw this dotted line underneath, and I'm going to call that rock bottom. Most people don't need to hit rock bottom continually to learn. It's not necessary. There's no direct reason why so many people do this, but I'm one of these people. In order for me to come back up and continue my journey, many times I had to hit rock bottom. My video game addiction, my adult website problems and other compulsive behaviors, and smoking and drinking and gaining weight, not realizing that I was doing subtle compulsions. And then as the line for suffering went on, I'm going to draw another line, but I'm going to make this kind of like middle to back end. And I'm still going to draw the rock bottom. I wouldn't need to go as deep and hit rock bottom, and then I would come up and make these big perspective shifts, have to come back down again. So it kind of went like this in the beginning. So remember, flatline suffering, hitting rock bottom, making a little bit of perspective shift, come back down, blah, 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 blah. And this is obviously not a one-to-one ratio. I'm just giving you an example of how it kind of played out. And then now, I would kind of go hit rock bottom and then make some big perspective shifts. Come back down, make some big perspective shifts. But every time I wouldn't have to hit that low point. And that low point for me was obviously the mental hospital. You know, the mental hospital was a big low point for me. And suicide, wanting to commit suicide. So hitting that over and over and over again. And then I would just make these perspective shifts. And then as time went on even further, okay, we'll do the same thing one more time. Line of suffering, rock bottom. It would kind of be like I would be much more above, and then every once in a while I would dip down. So I'd be much more above this line of suffering, and this is like perspective shifts, get a little low, doubt everything. Perspective shifts, get a little low, doubt everything. But I wasn't hitting that suicidal ideations in mental hospital, and because my frustration tolerance had changed, my beliefs had changed. The reason why this didn't happen is because of one thing and one thing only. I changed my beliefs about frustration tolerance, about the world not owing me anything, and then that eventually got me to where I am today, which is a completely different person, seeing things in a much more rational light, realizing that life isn't inherently fair. Universal deservingness doesn't exist more than likely. There's no one right or wrong way to live life. This will differ from culture to generation. What we think is right and correct today might look different than 5,000 years from now. Trust me, 500 years ago, what was correct and proper looks a whole lot different today. The problem is, when we attach ourselves to these universal principles of fairness and deservingness, we set ourselves up for potential disaster, emotional disaster, anxiety, shame, and guilt, and depression because of these strong beliefs about how things should be. I have to keep repeating that. So when you're listening to people on YouTube, and there's a lot of people I love, I try my best to be open-minded about everything, every topic, every subject, whether I agree or not. Some things frustrate me, some things not. Some things every once in a while bring me a little bit to anger, but then I can reel it back in because I've changed my belief. And it's really unfortunate because I see a lot of people in the mental health community and psychological community, really the biggest names out there, who really suffer with this strong guilt, strong depression that I've experienced severely, wanting to end my life. But then they haven't quite maybe been shown the tools yet that they're causing that on themselves. That sounds aggressive and it sounds brutal, but it's good to hear because it's the truth. When you are chronically depressed, when you are chronically anxious day in and day out, it's important to step back and say, why am I causing myself to be angry? Yes, life scenarios are unfair. They add to frustration, sometimes more than others. Because remember, and the last thing I'll write is how people view the world and why they don't want to be here anymore. Most people, I was one of them. I'm not just shit luck finding Rob and suffering with OCD. Most people think that A equals C. They never talk about beliefs. Even the smartest people I listen to in psychology, they never talk about this. And I think the reason why Ellis has been brushed under the rug so much, and people love the psychoanalysis, Freudian, Carl Jung, Arthur Schopenhauer, and all the other people that are based around not taking full responsibility for their emotional disturbance, because this takes a lot of self-realization and actualization. We're saying, wow, I'm the main reason why I'm having this emotional disturbance. How can I change my behaviors in my life? Once I realized that A plus B equals C with primarily the belief system, once I made that realization, things really started to change. And I took a lot more responsibility for the things in my life. I was a lot more honest with myself. I had a big problem with lying to myself, right? I just didn't want to highlight the things I was doing wrong. I had really bad patience. I had just the most black and white beliefs about how the world should be. And I don't have those beliefs anymore. I've changed them a lot. So thank you so much for watching this video. You can get there too. If you guys like my little antics with my sticky notes, please let me know. And if you need some help with, us at the team and the webinar services, please email us at phil@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in timely fashion. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, have a great day.